The shocking images of pro-Trump supporters storming the US Capitol on January the 6th, 2021 will forever be etched into the American psyche. The most violent attack on its democracy since the Civil War. But since that day, one singular question has remained. How far was Donald Trump to blame?
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen. We will never give up. We will never concede.
Now, a grand jury has gone some way to answering that question, indicting the former president on 4 criminal counts for what they say were his pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud.
The attack on our nation's capital was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
In painstaking detail, the indictment lays bare Trump's alleged involvement in 3 overlapping criminal conspiracies. One, to defraud the United States, using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to obstruct the counting, collection, and certification of election results. Another, to obstruct an official proceeding, namely the certification of Joe Biden as president on January the 6th. And a third, to threaten and intimidate Americans' right to vote and have that vote counted. Trump was also charged with obstruction of an official proceeding for his alleged exploitation of the violence and chaos at the Capitol on January the 6th. Having failed to prove his claims by legal means in the courts, the indictment alleges Trump and his co-conspirators then pursued unlawful means to subvert the election, knowingly using fake claims of fraud to strong-arm election officials in battleground states like Georgia to overturn the results.
So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
The indictment says that time and time again they refused, but still Trump persisted. Next, allegedly, came the plan to organise fraudulent lists of electors and force them to falsely certify the election for Trump instead of Biden. They obliged. But for Trump's plan to succeed, he needed his Vice President Mike Pence, who was due to certify the election results on January the 6th, to go along with the scheme. But that's where Trump's plan fell apart, because Pence refused to comply that day, and the indictment shows, crucially, that he kept contemporaneous notes of the pressure that he was subjected to by Trump in various private meetings, including one where Pence told Trump, "What you're asking me to do to overturn the results of the election is improper and against the Constitution." And Trump allegedly replied, "You're too honest." Up until now, there was a sense that Trump and his team had somehow got away with the events up to and including January the 6th. That yes, it was unethical, but could prosecutors prove it was illegal? This sweeping indictment says it was illegal, and Trump must now face the consequences. These obviously read like very serious charges. How serious are they for Donald Trump?
These are as serious charges that could possibly exist. But if you read this 45-page indictment, it sets out a really damning set of facts. And if I'm Donald Trump or Donald Trump's attorneys, tonight I'm not sleeping.
Won't Trump just say, "I did believe that there was fraud. I believed in my heart and in my head that what I was saying was true"?
What we've seen so far in this 45-page indictment is person after person telling Trump that he lost. Everyone, including his own lawyers, as well as 62 different courts, telling him as such. So I think it's going to be a hard defense to mount factually.
But that's exactly what Trump will try and do, to claim there was no intent to defraud. He did and still does claim the election was stolen. And by the way, so do millions of Americans who voted for him. To them and him, this is just more witch hunt. But there's no doubt this does now throw America into an unprecedented crisis. That a former president is now criminally charged with trying to overturn the results of the last election, while simultaneously running to win the next one. The big question, of course, is how much damage will this do to Donald Trump politically? The perceived wisdom thus far has been all these criminal cases will do him no harm with his base. They'll still love him anyway, and the polls have all borne that out. But that criminal charges won't play well with the wider population in a general election. But one very revealing poll yesterday in the New York Times has Donald Trump running neck and neck with Joe Biden in a general election despite all of his legal woes. Well, Trump is set to attend his arraignment here in DC tomorrow, where he will be formally charged. He's pretty familiar with that process already. And remember, this is just the latest chapter. We're also expecting more criminal charges, believe it or not, in the coming weeks about Trump's alleged role in trying to overturn the election results in Georgia. So watch this space. There's more to come.
Siobhan Kennedy. Well, I'm joined now by Adam Kinzinger, one of just 10 Republicans in Congress who defied their party line and voted to impeach Donald Trump over his role in the January 6th attack. He served on the committee investigating those riots and was censured by the Republican Party. He's retired from Congress now, but remains an outspoken Trump critic. Thank you for joining us. As your role on the committee, you would have seen a lot of the fundamental case against Donald Trump. Is there anything in this indictment that surprises you?
Not a lot that surprises me, because every day, I mean, frankly, every day while we were on the committee, there were new things that would surprise us. I think, if anything, maybe, I guess, didn't surprise me, but added to what we already knew, it was how in depth they continued to try to change the election results. They continued to try to lobby the Senate and Congress, particularly Rudy Giuliani, even while and after the violence on January 6th happened. One of the key factors is this. Donald Trump, as we all know, is somebody who, it's hard for him to resist peer pressure. That's a polite way to put it. You know, whoever speaks to him last on a foreign policy issue usually has the most influence. So that's why people are always trying to get in his ear or get in front of him on television. During the 187 minutes that the Capitol was under attack, people were trying to get Donald Trump to call off the attack. And he proactively and actively, for the first time, frankly, in his adult life, resisted pressure to act only when he saw that law enforcement had kind of turned the tide of that battle, that they were starting to take over control of the Capitol. Only then did Trump begrudgingly issue statements telling people to go home. I think that's going to be proven in this case as it comes out. And I think, you know, there were a lot of people that would refuse to talk to us that I think have been compelled to talk to DOJ. So I expect there'll be a lot more information to come when that trial happens.
I mean, what do you think the impact on America is actually going to be? Is a prosecution that follows the facts worth the potential uproar? And civil war, frankly, is not impossible, is it?
It's not impossible, no. And I think it's essential, though. If you ever let somebody get away with what Donald Trump did, what you're doing is you're sending a message. It may not be the next president. It may be a president in 10 or 20 years. You can attempt a coup anytime you want, as long as you fail. If you fail, just announce you're running again, and you are exempt from any punishment. If you succeed, well, then you're in charge, so that's good to go. As a nation that believes in the rule of law, we have to take whatever we can to enforce that law. Now, if people are going to, you know, make a decision to turn to violence or make a decision to riot as a result, that's a choice every American can make, and they'll face the law on that as well. But we as a nation, especially as the shining beacon of democracy around the world, we as a nation cannot let former presidents who broke the law get away with this. Now, it's obviously very concerning because there are countries that always prosecute the last administration. We're not doing that. What we're doing, and I'm saying this as a Republican, is enforcing the law, because when this fails and breaks apart, democracy cannot survive when that basic faith is destroyed.
I mean, you've already largely fallen out with many of your Republican colleagues, but are you surprised that even people like Ron DeSantis, who is supposedly challenging him, are supporting him effectively?
I continue to be blown away every day. So I'm still surprised. I still wake up every morning and kind of shake my head that the people I know, everybody I thought had a red line, have gone along with this authoritarianism so easily. And what I've come to believe is look, when you have to give a little piece of your soul, it becomes a sunken cost fallacy. So you give a little more of your soul, because if you stop giving pieces of your soul, you eventually have to admit that you gave away your soul to somebody that doesn't deserve it. So now you're in for a penny in for a pound. In terms of like Ron DeSantis and the people running for president, with the exception of like Chris Christie, they're just tiptoeing around Donald Trump. And I don't understand it. You want to be the president of the United States, and you're going to let the guy that's winning by 50% get away with these crimes, and you're simply going to come out and support him? It is, look, America needs a strong leader, and I think these other people running for president certainly aren't showing they have courage, because they're scared of the orange man, and that says a lot about them.
I mean, briefly, what's more likely, Donald Trump in jail or Donald Trump in the White House?
I think it's much more likely he's in jail. I don't think we can reduce and say that he's not going to win the White House. He easily can, but I do think there's going to be justice. And I think the American people, even if not Republicans, will not stand for an indicted, possible felon president of the United States.
Right, but it could be both then. It could be jail and White House. He could pardon himself.
It could be. It could be. I don't mean to laugh at it, but every day there's something so bizarre you think about. Yeah, if he wins the presidency, he will fully intend to pardon himself, or at least get his DOJ to call off the prosecution.
I mean,
he can do that.
I mean, hasn't that laugh just made the point? America's becoming a joke.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always said democracies aren't defined by bad times, bad moments. We're defined by how we come back from that. Every democracy, has low times, low moments. This is where we're going to be judged, is how do we come back from this? If we continue to descend down this elevator to hell, yeah, I think it's becoming a joke. But if we come back and we actually implement the rule of law and we stand strong, I think we can make that decision in 5 years, are we a joke or not? And I still believe in American democracy, that we're going to hold strong.
Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much indeed for your time.